Daniel was a quiet young rancher who lived far away from the noise of town, close to the wide desert and tall hills of Arizona Territory. Most days he woke before sunrise, fed his horses, checked the fences, and rode out to see if any cattle had wandered off. He lived alone in a small wooden cabin that his father had built many years ago. Life was simple, peaceful, and steady, but also lonely. After his parents passed away, the land became quiet in a way that sometimes felt heavy on his heart. He did not complain, but some nights, when the wind moved across the open fields, he wished he had someone to share the silence with. One warm afternoon, Daniel rode home from town after buying some supplies: flour, sugar, and a few nails for repairing his barn door. His horse moved calmly, taking slow steps because of the heat. The sun was strong, and the air shimmered above the dry ground. Daniel wiped sweat from his forehead and tightened his grip on the reins. He was thinking about the chores waiting for him when he saw something unusual near a dry creek bed about half a mile ahead. At first it looked like a dark shape lying on the ground. He slowed his horse, unsure if it was an animal or a person. When he got closer, he saw that it was a woman, an older Apache woman, sitting on the dusty earth and leaning against a rock. Her breathing was slow, and she looked tired and in pain. Daniel felt a sharp worry rise inside him. He knew the desert could be dangerous, especially for someone alone and injured. He climbed down from his horse right away. "Are you hurt?" he asked gently, kneeling beside her. The woman opened her eyes and nodded slowly. She said her name was Nalin. Daniel noticed her ankle was swollen, and her walking stick lay broken behind her. She had likely slipped on a loose stone and fallen. Her water pouch was nearly empty. Daniel offered her some water from his own canteen, and she drank it carefully, not wasting a drop. He spoke with calm respect, making sure she did not feel threatened or uncomfortable. "I can help you," he said softly. "Let me make something to support your ankle." He removed his scarf, a simple cloth he always carried, and folded it into a strong band. He wrapped it gently around her ankle, giving it support so she could move without too much pain. She watched him quietly, studying the patience in his hands. Many men in the territory were rough or dismissive, especially when dealing with strangers. Daniel's careful way surprised her. When she tried to stand, she struggled, and Daniel held out his arm. "Lean on me," he offered. She hesitated for a moment, not because she feared him, but because she did not want to be a burden. Yet the pain in her ankle forced her to accept. With slow steps, they moved toward a shaded area under a tall mesquite tree where the ground was cooler. Daniel helped her sit comfortably, then gave her a little more water. He didn't rush her or ask unnecessary questions. Instead, he let her breathe and regain her strength. The sky above them was a bright blue, and a soft breeze moved through the tree branches, giving Nalin a moment of relief. After resting for some time, Nalin tried to stand again. The pain made her wince. Daniel immediately stepped forward. "I'll take you back," he said. "It's too far for you to walk alone." Nalin watched him with eyes full of quiet gratitude. She did not ask why he cared so much. She could already see it in the way he moved. Steady, gentle, and honest. Men like him were rare. She nodded, and he helped her onto his horse. She sat sideways so her injured ankle could rest. Daniel walked beside the horse, holding the reins and making sure every step was slow and smooth. The journey was long, but Daniel didn't complain. He talked softly now and then, telling her about the land and how the cattle sometimes wandered too far. Nalin listened, not speaking much, but noticing everything. She noticed how he kept checking if she was comfortable. She noticed he never rushed. She noticed he lowered his voice to a comforting tone every time she breathed with pain. She noticed the kindness in him. A kindness that came naturally and without expectation. After nearly an hour, they reached the edge of a large area where her people sometimes camped. A few distant figures appeared, walking toward them. Nalin signaled to let them know she was safe. Daniel stopped the horse and helped her down carefully. Her people took her weight gently and thanked Daniel with respectful nods. Nalin turned to him and said, "You helped me more than you know. I will not forget this." Daniel smiled shyly, brushing dust from his coat. "Anyone would have helped," he said. But Nalin knew better. Not everyone would have stopped. Not everyone would have taken the time to walk slowly for miles under the sun, just to make sure she reached safety. She understood the value of such actions. She also understood something deeper, that a man's true character showed when no one was watching and when nothing was promised in return. Daniel was about to leave when Nalin called his name again. "Tell me," she said softly, "where is your home?" He pointed toward the far open land. "A small ranch," he replied, "just over those hills." She nodded thoughtfully, memorizing the direction, the way he stood, and the quiet humility in his voice. She sensed he lived alone, and that loneliness followed him like a long shadow. She sensed he needed something, someone, to brighten his days. She sensed he was the kind of man who deserved companionship, warmth, and a family, even if he never spoke of it. Daniel mounted his horse and waved once before riding away. He did not look back. Thinking this small moment of kindness would fade like many others in life, but for Nalin, it was not small. It was meaningful. It showed her a man with a gentle soul and a steady heart. When he reached his ranch again, the sun was setting. Daniel put away his supplies, let his horse drink, and walked into his empty cabin. The place felt quiet, but today the silence didn't trouble him as much. He felt glad he had helped someone in need. What he did not know was that his simple act of kindness had started something he could not yet see. Nalin, resting among her people, kept thinking about the young rancher who helped her without expecting anything. She thought about his respectful manner, his calm voice, and the warm honesty in his eyes. She thought about the way he lived alone in that small ranch over the hills. And she made a decision. She would not forget him. She would visit him again, not for help, not for anything of her own gain, but because she had something meaningful in mind. Something that could change his life and her daughter's life in a gentle, peaceful way. She only needed time to prepare. Daniel, unaware of the plans forming in Nalin's heart, sat down that night with a simple meal and watched the stars rise. He had no idea that soon a woman he had never met, Nalin's daughter, would arrive at his ranch and open a new chapter in his life. But for now, he just listened to the wind and felt a quiet hope he did not yet understand. A full week passed after Daniel helped Nalin, and life on the ranch returned to its usual rhythm. Every morning, Daniel woke before sunrise, fed his horses, repaired fences, checked the well, and walked through the fields to make sure no cattle had wandered away. His days were full of small tasks that kept him busy but left him with long stretches of silence. In those quiet moments, he sometimes wondered about the older Apache woman he had helped. He hoped she recovered well, but he assumed he would never meet her again. People in the territory often crossed paths once and then disappeared forever. That was simply how life worked. One afternoon, Daniel was in the barn repairing a loose wooden plank when he heard soft footsteps on the dry ground outside. They weren't the heavy steps of a man or the quick steps of a child. They were slow, measured, and light. He put down the hammer and walked out, brushing sawdust off his hands. When he stepped into the sunlight, he froze in surprise. Nalin was standing near the barn entrance, holding a small wrapped bundle in her hands. Daniel blinked, unsure if he was seeing correctly. She looked healthy now, walking without pain, her posture strong again. Her hair was neatly braided, and her expression carried calm confidence. "Nalin," he said softly. She nodded with a gentle smile. I wanted to come and thank you properly. Daniel walked toward her, trying not to look too surprised. You didn't have to travel all this way. I'm glad you're feeling better. She held out the bundle to him. This is a gift. Simple food from our home. I wanted you to have it. Daniel accepted the bundle carefully. Inside were small handmade flatbreads, dried berries, and a little pouch of herbs that smelled fresh and clean. The gesture touched him more than he expected. People rarely brought him anything, not even from town. Thank you, he said, sincerely. Nalin studied his face for a moment. The wind pushed a bit of dust across the yard, and the horses in the corral lifted their heads, curious but calm. She looked around the ranch, at the fences, the barn, the quiet cabin, and then back at him. There was something thoughtful in her eyes, something she had carried with her since the day he helped her. You live alone, she stated gently. Daniel nodded. Yes, just me now. You work hard. I try to keep the place standing. And you want a family, she added softly. Daniel felt heat rise to his cheeks. He didn't expect such direct words. Where did you hear that? He asked, trying not to sound embarrassed. When someone is kind, people talk, she said. The women in town said you are looking for a wife. They said you are a good man but haven't found someone yet. Daniel looked down at the ground. It was true, but he had never spoken loudly about it. The people in town simply observed things. He often stood alone at the edge of gatherings, bought necessities quietly, and returned home immediately. He wasn't rude, he was just shy, and people noticed. I don't know if I'm looking, he said softly. I just think life might feel less heavy with someone around. Nalin nodded slowly. A man like you should not live in silence forever. Daniel didn't know how to answer. He wasn't used to talking about his wishes with anyone, especially not someone he had only met once. But Nalin's voice was warm, not pushy. She spoke like a mother who had seen many seasons and understood many hearts. She took a small breath, then spoke the words she had come to say. I have a daughter, she said gently. Her name is Ayana. She is kind, respectful, good with work, and strong in spirit. She would be perfect for a man like you. Daniel's heart almost stopped. He stared at Nalin, unsure if he should speak or remain quiet. The desert breeze moved gently between them, and the horses snorted softly, as if waiting for his response. I don't understand, he finally said. I mean what I said, Nalin replied calmly. My daughter is young but wise. She takes care of our people. She knows how to cook, sew, gather herbs, and keep a place warm with her presence. She is honest and hard-working, and she deserves a man who respects her. Daniel felt like the ground shifted beneath him. He had never been offered something so serious, so direct, so unexpected. He struggled to form words. You don't even know me well, he said quietly. But I saw who you are, Nalin answered. A man's nature is shown in small actions. You helped me without expecting anything. You walked slowly for miles so I would not suffer. You spoke kindly. I trust what I saw. Daniel looked down, overwhelmed. No one had spoken about him like this in years. No one had looked at him and said he deserved something good. I'm not sure, he whispered. I don't want to force anyone. What if she doesn't like me? Nalin smiled gently. That is why she would only come to meet you. Nothing more. She will choose for herself. But first, you must allow me to bring her. Daniel swallowed hard. He wasn't sure what scared him more, the idea of meeting someone who might become important, or the idea of staying alone forever. After a long moment of silence, he nodded slowly. You can bring her, he said, if she wants to come. Nalin's smile widened, not in excitement, but in warm satisfaction. Then I will return soon. She stepped back, But before leaving, she glanced once more at his cabin. "Clean your home," she advised kindly. "A girl sees everything, even the small things." Daniel almost laughed at that, though his nerves were too tangled for him to fully relax. Nalin walked away, her steps steady, her back straight. She disappeared beyond the trees and hills, leaving Daniel standing alone with the bundle she had gifted him. The moment she left, Daniel felt a jolt of panic. He looked toward his cabin and suddenly saw every dusty corner, every unorganized shelf, every forgotten blanket. He looked at the barn and noticed loose boards, crooked tools, and hay scattered everywhere. He wondered what a young woman, Nalin's daughter, would think if she saw his place like this. That entire evening, Daniel cleaned like never before. He swept the cabin floor, washed dishes, folded blankets, and wiped the table until the wood shone. He repaired the barn door properly and even brushed his horse twice. Something inside him had awakened, a feeling he hadn't felt in years. It wasn't fear. It was hope mixed with nervous energy. That night he lay on his bed but could barely rest. His mind replayed Nalin's words over and over. "My daughter is perfect for you. She will choose for herself. A man like you should not live in silence forever." Daniel had never imagined that someone would come into his life because of a simple act of kindness. He didn't know what Ayanna looked like or what she would think when she saw him. All he knew was that Nalin believed in something he had never seen in himself. 2 days passed, and each sunrise made him more restless. He found himself glancing at the horizon again and again, searching for the shape of 2 figures walking toward the ranch. His hands shook when he held tools, not because of fear, but because the thought of meeting someone new stirred something deep in him. On the 3rd morning, as he was feeding the horses, he saw movement in the distance. 2 figures walked side by side, one shorter, one taller, both moving with calm purpose. His heart beat hard in his chest. Nalin had returned, and this time she was not alone. Daniel stood near the corral fence, pretending to check the hay. But in truth, his eyes kept drifting toward the distant hill. The 2 figures walking toward the ranch grew clearer with every step. The shorter one was Nalin. The taller figure beside her moved with a gentle grace, her steps calm and steady. Daniel's heart thumped harder as they came closer. He wiped his hands on his trousers and tried to stand straight, hoping he did not look as nervous as he felt. When they finally reached the open yard, Nalin greeted him with a nod and turned slightly to the young woman beside her. "This is my daughter," she said softly. "Her name is Ayanna." The young woman lifted her head, and Daniel's breath quietly caught in his chest. Ayanna had calm eyes, soft, steady, kind. She was young, but carried herself with a quiet confidence that reminded Daniel of gentle rain on a dry day. Her long dark hair was braided neatly, and her expression held a mixture of shyness and warmth. She lowered her gaze respectfully before speaking. "Thank you," she said in a soft voice, "for helping my mother." Daniel felt his words stick in his throat. He finally managed to say, "I'm glad I could help." His voice came out quieter than he expected. Ayanna smiled slightly, and Nalin stepped forward. "We came so she can see your home, meet you, and understand what kind of man lives here." Daniel felt his cheeks warm, but he nodded. "You're welcome to look around. I cleaned a little." Nalin gave a tiny smile, as if she had expected that. She called Ayanna's attention and gently motioned for her to walk with Daniel. The young woman stepped forward, and Daniel guided her toward the small cabin. As they walked side by side, Daniel tried to calm his nerves. He found himself glancing at Ayanna, but only in quick, shy looks. She walked quietly, observing everything with thoughtful eyes: the barn, the trees, the open land. When they reached the cabin, Daniel opened the door for her. She stepped inside, and her eyes slowly moved across the room. Everything was tidy. The floor swept, table cleaned, blankets folded. The sunlight from the window lit the space gently. "It is simple," she said kindly, "but warm." Daniel felt relieved. "I did what I could," he said. "I don't have much, but I try to take care of what I have." She approached the wooden table and ran her fingers lightly across its surface. "My mother said you live alone," she said softly. "Yes," Daniel replied, "since my parents passed away." She looked at him with sympathy but not pity. "It must be hard sometimes." Daniel nodded. "The silence is the hardest. The days are busy, but evenings feel long." Ayanna nodded slowly, as if she understood the weight of quiet nights. After a moment, she noticed a small carving on a shelf, a wooden horse Daniel had made years ago. She picked it up carefully, studying the shape. "You carved this?" she asked. Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "Yes. It's not very good." "It is honest," she said, "and made with patience. That matters more." Her words surprised him. Most people would have barely noticed it. They stepped outside to find Nalin waiting near the barn. She watched her daughter with warm eyes, paying attention to how comfortable she seemed. Ayanna walked with Daniel to the corral next. The horses lifted their heads when they approached. Daniel leaned on the fence, pointing at a chestnut mare. "This one is Star," he said. "She's gentle. Would you like to pet her?" Ayanna nodded. Daniel opened the gate and led her inside. He handed her a small handful of hay and guided her hand forward. Star nuzzled Ayanna's palm gently, and Ayanna smiled at the soft touch. "She is kind," Ayanna whispered. "She likes people with a calm spirit," Daniel said, "and she likes you." Ayanna looked at Daniel with a soft, appreciative gaze. For a moment, silence settled between them, not heavy, not awkward, just peaceful. Nalin watched from a distance, her arms crossed loosely, her expression thoughtful. She saw how her daughter moved near Daniel, calm, not tense. She noticed how Daniel watched Ayanna with quiet respect, not pushing, not rushing. It reassured her in a deep way. After spending time with the horses, Ayanna asked if she could help with something simple to understand the life Daniel lived. He hesitated, not wanting her to work on her first visit, but she insisted kindly. So he guided her toward the small garden patch behind the cabin. The soil was dry, and the plants needed attention. Ayanna knelt down and began pulling out small weeds with practiced hands. Daniel knelt beside her, trying to work, but often finding himself watching her instead. She noticed him glancing and smiled. "You work hard," she said gently. "So do you," Daniel replied. "My mother taught me since I was young," Ayanna said. "Work keeps the mind steady." Daniel nodded. "My parents taught me the same." While they worked, a soft breeze moved across the land. Ayanna's braid shifted lightly in the wind. Daniel noticed her steady patience, her focus, and her quiet strength. She wasn't pretending to be helpful. She truly was. After a while, Nalin walked over to them. "Ayanna," she said softly, "come drink some water." Ayanna rose, dusted off her skirt, and followed her mother. While they stepped aside, Daniel stood and wiped his hands. He felt nervous again, unsure what they might be discussing. The two women spoke quietly, and though Daniel couldn't hear their words, he saw the gentle way Ayanna nodded and the soft pride in Nalin's eyes. A moment later, they returned. Ayanna looked at Daniel with sincerity. "I am thankful you let me come today," she said. "You are different from the men I have met before. You speak gently. You do not show anger. You work with patience." Daniel's heart beat faster. "I'm just doing what feels right." "I didn't expect any of this." "But it has meaning," she replied softly. Nalin stepped forward and addressed Daniel directly. My daughter is observing not just your home, but your spirit. That is what truly matters. Daniel swallowed, unsure what to say. Ayanna looked at him again. I feel safe here, she said. Those simple words made Daniel feel something warm in his chest, something he had not felt in years. They continued spending time together. Ayanna asked questions about the ranch, how many cattle he had, how he managed seasons, how he handled storms. Daniel answered each question with honesty, and she listened with genuine interest. Eventually, the sun began lowering behind the hills. The sky turned soft shades of orange and pink. Nalin placed a gentle hand on her daughter's shoulder. We should return home before darkness. Ayanna nodded but looked at Daniel before leaving. I would like to come again, she said in a quiet tone. Daniel felt his breath catch. You're always welcome here. Nalin gave Daniel one last observing look, a look filled with approval and calm trust. Take care of yourself, she said. We will return soon. Daniel watched as they walked away, their figures slowly becoming small shapes against the colorful sky. He stood still long after they disappeared beyond the hill. His ranch felt different now, almost warmer, almost alive. That night, Daniel sat outside his cabin, staring at the sky full of stars. He replayed every moment of the visit, the way Ayanna smiled softly, the way she gently touched the horse, the way she knelt in the garden without hesitation, and especially the way she said she felt safe with him. He realized something had changed inside him. He didn't fully understand it yet, but he knew it was hopeful. Before meeting Ayanna, his life felt flat, predictable, and lonely. But now his world felt wider, brighter, and filled with the possibility of something meaningful. He wondered what Ayanna thought as she walked back home. Did she feel the same strange warmth he felt? Did she imagine what life on his ranch might be like? Did she think about him the way he already found himself thinking about her? As the night settled around him, Daniel felt a gentle promise forming in his heart. A promise he did not speak aloud, but felt deeply. This visit was only a beginning, and something beautiful might grow from it. The next few days passed slowly for Daniel, though his hands stayed busy with ranch work. Every hour felt longer than usual, and every time the wind shifted, he found himself glancing toward the hills as if expecting to see two figures approaching. He tried not to hope too strongly, but Ayanna's last words, I would like to come again, kept replaying in his mind. He had never imagined someone would speak to him like that, with gentle honesty and quiet trust. It made his world feel lighter, as if a soft light had started glowing inside his chest. On the fourth morning after their visit, Daniel was fixing a broken bucket near the barn when he heard soft footsteps on the dirt road again. He straightened quickly, heart beating fast. Two figures appeared once more, Nalin and Ayanna, walking with the same calm grace as before. But this time, Ayanna walked with a bit more confidence, as if she felt familiar with the land around his ranch. Daniel stepped forward, trying not to look too eager. You came back, he said, unable to hide the warmth in his voice. Ayanna gave a shy smile. Yes, I wanted to. Nalin nodded politely, then let Ayanna walk ahead while she stayed a few steps behind, observing their interaction with a gentle, approving expression. Daniel guided Ayanna toward the porch where he had placed a small wooden stool for her. She sat quietly, and Daniel sat on a nearby step. The morning air was cool, and birds called softly from the trees. They talked for a while, simple, quiet conversation about daily chores, about the weather, about her people preparing for the coming season. Daniel found himself opening up more than he expected. He told Ayanna about his parents, about how they built the ranch together. about the struggles during harsh winters, and about the loneliness he felt after they were gone. Ayanna listened with deep attention, never interrupting, never rushing him. Her calm presence made it easy for him to speak. When she talked, her voice carried a soft warmth. She told him about her childhood, about her mother teaching her how to gather herbs, how to cook, how to keep a home steady and peaceful. She spoke about her love for early mornings, for the quiet moments before the sun grew strong. Daniel listened closely, appreciating every detail she shared. After some time, Nalin approached them and said she needed to check something near the trees. She walked away slowly, giving them space. Daniel and Ayanna remained on the porch, and a comfortable silence settled around them. They didn't need to fill every moment with words. The quiet felt natural. At one point, Ayanna looked toward the fields and said, "Your land is peaceful. I can see why you stay here." "It feels less empty now," Daniel admitted softly. Ayanna turned her head slightly, meeting his eyes. She didn't blush or look away. Instead, she held his gaze with quiet understanding, as if she knew exactly what he meant. Later, Daniel walked with Ayanna to the corral again. This time, she asked to help brush the horses. Daniel handed her a brush, and together they stood side by side, grooming the chestnut mare, Star. Ayanna's movements were gentle and sure. Daniel found himself watching her hands as they moved slowly through Star's coat, then watching her face as she smiled softly when the horse leaned into her touch. "You're good with her," Daniel said. "She is calm," Ayanna replied. "Animals understand hearts better than people sometimes." "That's true," Daniel said quietly. While they brushed the horses, the wind carried the faint scent of warm grass and earth. The moment felt simple, but something meaningful hung in the air, like two lives slowly weaving together thread by thread. When they finished, Ayanna walked to the garden again and checked the soil. She noticed the plants needed water and began carrying a small bucket from the well. Daniel tried to help, but she shook her head lightly. "Let me," she said. "I want to see how it feels to work here." Daniel watched her carefully, not letting her carry too much weight. He stood close enough to assist, but also let her find her own rhythm. She watered the plants with steady hands, then knelt to adjust a young sprout leaning sideways. Daniel knelt beside her, and together they fixed the small row of vegetables. While they worked, their shoulders sometimes brushed, but each time it happened, it felt natural, like two people slowly learning to move around each other with comfort and respect. After a while, Nalin returned to them. She watched her daughter's hands moving in the soil, and Daniel kneeling nearby. The sight softened her expression even more. She waited until they finished before speaking. "It is time we return before the sun becomes too strong," she said. Ayanna stood slowly, dusting her hands. She looked at Daniel with a gentleness that made his heart tighten. "Thank you for today," she said. "I feel peaceful here." Daniel swallowed. "I feel the same." They walked toward the front yard where Nalin waited. Before they left, Nalin turned to Daniel with a serious but warm expression. "You have seen my daughter," she said. "You have spoken with her, worked beside her, and watched her spirit. Now I ask, how do you feel about her?" It was a direct question, but Daniel understood it was important. He took a breath, looked at Ayanna, and spoke with honesty. "I think she is special," he said. "She is kind, patient, hard-working, and peaceful in a way that makes this ranch feel alive. But I don't want her to feel pushed or expected. Whatever happens should be her choice." Nalin nodded with approval. A wise answer. She then turned to her daughter. "And you, Ayanna? What do you think of this man?" Ayanna looked at Daniel for a long moment before answering. Her words were quiet, but steady. "I feel safe around him," she said. "He speaks with gentleness. He has a steady heart, and when I am here, I do not feel like a stranger." Daniel felt warmth fill his chest. Nalin placed a hand on her daughter's back. "Then listen carefully," she said to both of them. "A bond should grow slowly, with honesty, respect, and shared effort. Nothing should be rushed. But if you both feel something kind beginning, then let it grow." Daniel nodded. Ayanna nodded too. Nalin smiled softly. "We will return again soon." Daniel watched as they walked away. Ayanna glanced back once, her eyes meeting his for a brief moment, filled with quiet promise. Then she turned and followed her mother home. The ranch felt silent again after they left. But this silence was different. It wasn't heavy like before. It carried warmth, hope, and a sense of something important beginning to form. Daniel spent the evening repairing a fence, but he kept pausing to remember the way Ayanna smiled, the way she brushed the horse, the way she worked beside him in the garden. He realized that in only a few days, she had changed the way he saw his own life. Over the next weeks, Ayanna visited often, with her mother at first, and then sometimes alone when she felt comfortable enough to walk the distance herself. She helped with small chores, brought herbs for tea, and shared stories of her people. Daniel fixed things around the ranch, made small wooden carvings for her, and learned more about her gentle but strong nature. There was no rush, no pressure. Their bond grew quietly, like a plant stretching toward sunlight without noise. After a month of visits, Nalin and her people held a small gathering, inviting Daniel to join them. Around a warm fire, the two families talked, shared food, and watched the stars. Nalin spoke kindly about Daniel, and Ayanna sat beside him, not too close, not too far, with a soft smile that never left her face. By the end of the evening, everyone understood what was forming. It wasn't a loud, dramatic love. It was a quiet, steady connection built on respect, kindness, and authentic care. With blessings from both sides, Daniel and Ayanna agreed to build a life together. Not rushed, not forced, but chosen slowly, thoughtfully, and with open hearts. When Ayanna finally came to live on the ranch, she brought warmth into every corner of the cabin. Daniel felt the silence disappear. Her laughter filled the air, her hands kept the home alive, and her presence made the world feel full. And all of it began from one simple act of kindness on a hot afternoon, when a lonely young rancher offered help to an injured woman, not knowing she would one day bring him the person who would change his life forever.